All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Paul Trani here. Hello. What's happening, Eric? I just got your message. I'll have to respond later, but good to see you here, my friends. Fellow Denverite, my name is Paul Trani, and yes, we're going to get this party started. So this is being recorded, in case you do have to skip out. But we'd love to hear from you. I know people are watching, so feel free to say hello. My name is Paul Trani, evangelist for Adobe, and we're going to dive into an intro to Photoshop CC. And yeah, that is the plan. Always curious if you're familiar with Photoshop. Would love to see that. But essentially, this is an introduction, so I don't expect any familiarity with it. But let's get this party started. Feel free to just kind of chime in and say hello. Again, my name is Paul Trani. I want to tell you what we're talking about today, which is a lot of fun stuff because Photoshop is fun. All right, Chad, thank you. I like talking to people, not just into space. So it's good to know that I'm talking to Eric and Chad. So feel free to say hello and where you're from. Make sure somebody's live at the other end of that keyboard and all that good stuff. So if you're not aware of me, my name is Paul Trani. I'm an evangelist for Adobe. You can follow me at Paul Trani on the interwebs and all that good stuff. So, but let's kind of talk about what we're going to cover today and why we're all here. It's really just to take advantage and learn Photoshop. So this is just the description you see below, but I can also post this link, which is to the files as well. So in case you want to follow along, feel free. It is just Photoshop Experience. Just like that. Should get you there. Right, and it will just take you to a Dropbox link. All right, so, but we're going to learn Photoshop. If I take a step ahead, the goal today is really just to have fun and learn something new that you can use over and over again, because we know Photoshop's invaluable, really on a personal level as well as professional. So we want you to go ahead and share this with others as well. And we'll fill out this. I'll send you the survey link at the end, but we'd love to get your feedback as well. To see if you're interested in these type of sessions is the idea. Okay, so hopefully that works for you. There we are. Now we finally see a refresh. There we are. Good to see you, Emily. Fantastic. Emily, this is what I want to hear too. It's like if you're a super beginner, that's great. Tip of the iceberg, Jack knows a little bit. Darian from San Jose, New York City in the house, NYC office. You guys from a cool office. I love it. So again, we're going to have fun today is really the goal. I'm going to show you some new things. So what you'll learn is diving into the fundamentals. I don't expect you to know anything. We're going to understand the Photoshop Workspace, sort of navigating around Photoshop and the different panels. We're going to dive into the fundamentals, which is like cropping a photo, right? Sort of making global color adjustments and just, you know, you just want to make a photo look better. So that's what that's all about, right? And then edit specific areas of a photo, right? So little touch-ups to an area. So we want to, you know, remove or add something to a photo. And then sort of like beyond that, can you extract a background from a photo? So you can pull yourself out of a background, for instance, and I'll show you how to do that and how to composite all of that together. So that is the agenda, if that works for you. Lehigh in the house, a beginner, perfect. And these are part of sort of like our experience days we had last year, maybe the year before. And this is kind of taking it to the next level, you know, bringing it right into your house, if you will, your home, wherever you're working, and all that good stuff. So I'm going to share my screen now. You can see actually just like a number of just examples of what you could do in Photoshop. You know, everything from this crazy type of work you see here, 3D, some fun work right here with compositing an alligator, just sitting and reading a paper. He doesn't mean no harm, right? I'm going to work on something kind of like this. This is a Photoshop composite where this girl's being kind of taken away, right? And I can start to, you know, work on the color adjustments for that and get these different looks. But I thought this was kind of kind of fun to work on. Of course, Adobe Max, you can get complex with sort of using 3D type, and that's actually what's happening here, is this type is actually 3D. Yeah, you can get that crazy in Photoshop. I'm slowly rotating that, but it is 3D, so it's gonna get a little funky. Nonetheless, just a couple examples of what you can do in Photoshop. You probably have been impressed by what it can do, is my hope. Another poster for, just a South by Southwest talk I did. And you get the idea. I did this a couple weeks ago. Just so you know, you could always join us on behance.net/live. We're always live streaming, and I created this a couple weeks ago with one of our streamers as well, sort of compositing text within a photo and stuff like that. So that's just some examples just to get you excited. Just to get you excited. All right, I will be glancing at the chat. I'll try to be good about... let's turn up the volume a little bit. Hopefully that's better. So hopefully that works better for you. Yes, just a little bit. Let's crank this up. Crank up this output volume. And hopefully that's a little better for you. All right, check. Let's get into this right now. Hopefully I'm not blowing up your speakers right now. But let's dive into this. All right, cool. And I've sent some files through, and I'm going to start with the fundamentals. We're not going to get as advanced as this. What we want to do is I'm going to open up just a couple files. And again, I'm just opening up this folder where I have a couple of things. So I'm just going to start with some basic cropping. Okay, so this is what I want to do, because this is what happens. You take a photo, and it gets a little crooked. So if you happen to be using these or downloaded these files, it's just ptrani.me/Photoshop experience. I'm going to post that link right in here right now. You can download these files. But essentially, I'm going to open up this Iceland waterfall PSD file. Oh, hopefully I sound much better. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Good. All right, beginner, we are here for you. So again, this is what typically happens. This is not working. This is ugly. I can't take a trip to Iceland and come back with this type of photo, right? So there's a bunch of things I'd like to do with this to make it look better. First thing I want to do, and this is one of the most popular tools right in Photoshop. Let me make sure you can see that off to the side. And first, let's talk about the Photoshop Workspace. I'm going to bring this in a little bit so you can see everything a little bit better. I've opened up this file, and what do I have? I have off to the left-hand side, I have all these fun tools that I'm going to be using, right? I'm going to get the options bar at the top for the tool that I have selected, and then I have other panels on the right-hand side. What you can do is you can go to Window, Workspace, and you can have it set to like Essentials. That's typically what will happen. I've moved panels around, so I'm just going to reset the Essentials panel, because this is what it will look like to you when you first open a file. Okay? And from there, I have this Libraries panel, this Color panel, Layers, and of course this History panel. I'm going to point out the panels that are going to be actually the most useful to you are really going to be, sure, History. Yeah, that's great. We need to be able to undo. Is this Properties panel and then the Layers panel. So even for this Libraries panel, I'd love to brag about libraries, but what we had to do here is we had to elevate this to make it a first-class citizen just to make sure people are aware of it. But I can always pull off that panel and then just close it. I'm just going to close it by clicking this little X button, right? Because I'm going to make sure I have the Properties panel and the Layers panel up as my two most important panels for this session, right? Let's move on. Moving this over just like that. Cool. All right, so what I can do is I can use the crop tool. You can see it's the fourth one down. Looks like those two arrows pointing opposite directions. Selecting the crop tool. And then I get these different options around the corners for rotating and cropping. So I can grab the corner and I can bring it in. I can also rotate it into place as well, because I kind of want to make sure that the horizon line, or this line right here, is horizontal. So I've rotated it and kind of cropped it in, okay? And what you'll see a lot of times when you're working in Photoshop is you'll see these little squares right here. Chris, hopefully you know what I'm talking about. Anusha, if you have any questions, let me know. But this means it's just transparency, right? So that's totally fine. What I think is really cool about the options up here, so check this out. Up at the top, this is selected. So this is whether you want to delete cropped pixels or not. I usually turn that off, right? I don't want to delete cropped pixels, right? So what that means is if I accidentally like crop this in too tight, I still have access to these other pixels, okay? So I just make sure that's turned off. And another thing I'm going to show you, which is pretty new, so even if you are no Photoshop, this is content-aware fill areas outside of the original, okay? So, hey Trisha, so like this is what I want to do. I want to fill these areas right in here. Fill that in for me magically, Photoshop, right? Fill this in down here, right? And all I need to do is hit enter or this little button right up here at the top. Like that, and it'll do its work. Using content-aware technology, and we can talk about cleaning up this specifically right up here, but this already looks a little better. All right. Okay, here we go. Thesha and Vikram. So essentially, I want to maybe brighten up this photo because this looks really washed out. A couple different ways. A couple different ways we can like sort of just give this some more pop, right? I can show you what typically people will do is they'll go to image because they're like, hey, I want to make an image adjustment. Anytime you're doing this, image adjustments, see if I can increase the size of that. You know, this is going to be destructive. So once I apply this brightness and contrast to this layer, okay, I might increase the brightness. It's going to be destructive. So if I happen to blow it out too much and click OK, I've lost all of those beautiful blues in the sky. So typically you don't want to do that. And look at my layer. It's like, hey, I'm just a sole little lonely layer that has nothing going on with me. There's nothing magical about me. And what I want to do is I want to undo that. Undo brightness contrast. And I'm going to dive into making a new layer. In this case, it's going to be a new adjustment layer. In fact, this could be an easier way for you to do this. This might make even more sense. I'm going to drag this out. Couple different ways you can get to it, and I'm kind of torn on which way is best. But right down here, I can create a new layer that's gonna, you know, protect the pixels below it. Let's create that new layer, a new adjustment layer. So it's that little circle with the line through it, clicking right there, and now I can use the brightness contrast right here. So this is the way I want to get to this, right? Oh, Manu, that's my goal. If you guys are like, this is too simple, then I'm doing, my goal is not to overwhelm you. All right, what just happened? Oh, look, it added this new layer, and this is the power of Photoshop. I can't zoom in on this enough, right? Is to add this brightness and contrast, okay? And look, like I said, a super important panel to have out is this properties panel. Let's just close that. This properties panel. Properties panel gives me the properties for that selected layer. Thank you, Thesha. This is the workflow best practices. Perfect. And then I can increase the brightness and contrast. And usually anytime you see an auto button, you should try the auto button. So click auto and it'll go through and make those adjustments, kind of detecting the pixels and adjusting accordingly. Okay. And again, I can crank that up some more just so everybody kind of see what's happening and you get the idea. The cool thing about this is I could add as many of these adjustment layers as I want, right down here. Click. Let's kind of bring this into view a little better. Click. Let's add some more like hue and saturation or vibrance. Right? Let's add some hue and saturation. Let's go with vibrance because probably that's what you'd feel like doing. I want to make it more vibrant. Who wouldn't want more vibrance? But now I'm cranking up the vibrance and the saturation, for instance. Because face it, when you were in Iceland, this is more what it looks like. So check this out. We can always go back to our you know, what our original looks like, because here I have my 2 adjustment layers. I can turn that off and turn that off, and now it's back before, after, before, after. Okay, this is the fundamentals of Photoshop, right? An intro to Photoshop. Oh yes, thank you, Pete. Thank you. Pete's pointing out the different preset aspect ratios when you crop photos, which is good because you could do like a square ratio if you're like publishing to Instagram or something like that. And honestly, if you want to publish, let's see if it's here. I want to see. Okay, and Instagram isn't here, but this is a new feature because once you've made some edits, you can actually upload directly to Lightroom, send it to your friend, post to Facebook, and everything. So let me just kind of review the schedule with you real fast. And give me 1 second. And we're back. I've been waiting on a laptop to be delivered to me for the past like 2 weeks. So if I miss this guy, I'm gonna die. So that's what I do, is I have this ability to kind of turn those on and off, which makes this really effective in general for making this a non-destructive edit, which is cool. Yes, you could use these, and you could use these anywhere you want. Let me kind of take it to the, oh, there's so much I want to talk about. So much I want to talk about it. I didn't do a costume change. But let's take a look at these. This looks pretty good. I noticed when I added, you ready for this? You can add as many of these as you want, but I'm going to take this to the next level. Whew, so exciting. I got to calm down. I know this stuff and I get so excited about it. For you pros out there, if you want to have a good time in adding even more adjustment layers, explore all of these, right? There are so many amazing ones. You can just, you know, levels, curves. These are all about the sort of the contrast, not changing the colors. And these down here change the colors, okay? We can go up here. We can do gradient. Let's get fancy. Selecting gradient. Oops, I didn't want a gradient fill. Cancel. I didn't want that. I wanted a gradient map. So if you want to get fancy, and I know Pete knows this, I can select a gradient map if I want to get fancy. And now all of a sudden I have a gradient map where it's sort of taking all the dark colors and making them light, all the light colors and making them dark. But here I'm making sort of all these very extravagant color shifts, which is just kind of crazy, right? So anytime you see a photo of someone and it's only 2 colors, they've probably used this gradient map. So that's what that is. But this is the fun stuff that you can do. And now all of a sudden it's like you're just walking on Mars and adding all those gradients accordingly. So again, might be a little much for us. So let's say for instance, I want to delete it because I know I don't want this gradient map. Right down here, just like with other Adobe apps, I can click delete layer and now it's gone. Okay. Oh, Mathael? Good to see you. Thank you for that nice comment. I want to make this valuable to you. And are you ready for this? This is pretty new too, okay, Pete? You know what I'm talking about. I know Eric knows what I'm talking about. Color lookup. So basically, this is, I mentioned Instagram a second ago. This is like the closest to Instagram filters, or just like make it better filters that I can think of. But this is a color lookup table. So from here, I can actually use my same properties panel. Oops. And pick one of these, cancel, presets. So these are just basically a bunch of hue and saturation, brightness, vibrance, all of that stuff rolled into one. So I can say, hey, you know what? Let's make this crisp and warm. Give it a crisp, warm look. Selecting that, and it's changed it to that crisp, warm look. So I can kind of click through these and have a winter look, or have any look that I want. You know, remove the blues, make it look warm. What about an edgy amber, right? You start to get the idea. I think these are really fun to play with because it kind of makes anything look better. And where these come from, actually comes from the video world when you have multiple nonlinear editing systems. They're all different, but you needed one color profile to make all that footage, the footage that everybody's editing, to make it all match in that one movie. That's what this is originated from, and that's why you have these films, because they wanted to give it a certain film look and have it established the same across all those nonlinear editing systems, right? So again, I encourage you to kind of go through those. Teal orange. And again, you get the idea. Look at how dramatic this looks now. So I encourage you to look at those. All we've done is we've done global color adjustments here. Okay. Ooh, yes. Chad, adjustment layers with blend modes. We'll talk about all that stuff too. Super fun stuff. Let's do that now, because I've been doing these global color adjustments, and I think Chad is on the right track with doing that. So I'll just delete that layer. And what Chad is talking about is, like, you know, making a new layer is what I can do. And what I can do is I can create a new layer right over here just by clicking this page button right here, create a new layer, click, and I can paint on that new layer, sure, right? I can paint with white using my paintbrush. Ooh, geez, what brush do I have selected? Let's change this back to my default soft round. But oops. And not dissolve. But I can paint on this, or, you know, on this layer in white or black or whatever. Okay, so that's what I can do. I can fill this whole area with white if I want to. And you could do your own art, of course, painting, whatever. And since I'm talking about adjusting the look of this photo, I'm going to select this layer that has this white on it. And this is the magic that makes Photoshop super special, are layer blend modes. Okay, so I've just added that white just in that middle area, and I'm going to change the layer blend mode to something else. Let's change it to darken. And what it's done is, for that area, it's made it darker. And I feel like doing my shortcut keys. I can change this to multiply. Color burn. We're not actually seeing a whole lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint a different color right in here. I'll pick I will pick a blue just for fun. I'm not sure, but oh, I keep accidentally changing that to dissolve. I can paint with blue, and I'm just adding a splash of color just to show you how that color interacts when I start changing the color mode. See how it starts to change that area? It's the color mode for that layer. So I know a lot of people will work this way. I'll change this to overlay, for instance. See, look at that. Look at how bright that is. And the cool thing is I can continue to paint any way I want. I can, you know, also erase or delete some of this and just have the top portion that blue. Or I can even shift that color, right? So I can say, hey, you know what, for this, instead of it being blue, let's just make it a green. And again, with that layer color mode, change to overlay, we can see how vibrant that makes it. A little too much, I get it. But you get the idea. That's what color modes do on layers as I paint on them, okay? That might come up later on. I think an area this could work for us is something I want to talk about. Okay. All right. So let's kind of remove that. Let's get back to where we were. We can see both of these. I want to get into. I'm going to do some individual touch-ups to areas, but I want to kind of talk about how I lost the the beautiful blue in the sky. Okay. So how can I bring back that beautiful blue? Okay, and I want to talk about layer masks. You ready for this? You ready for layer masks? Let me show you layer masks. And let me actually adjust my panel options. Let me make these thumbnails even larger. For each layer, you can add a layer mask. For these, there are already, you know, these layer masks. And basically, if you have this layer mask selected, you can paint on it. If you're painting with black, it's going to remove, and white will actually show what's there. So what I can do is I can select this layer mask, and then I can paint with black, and it's going to remove that brightness contrast from that area. Okay, so that's what I want to do. Selecting brightness and contrast, and let me make sure that's really cranked up. Let's really crank it up a lot. All right, so I have this layer selected, selecting it, going over here, selecting my brush, making sure right over here this color is set to black. And with that selected, I can come up here and I can start painting with black. And watch what happens to this layer. As I start to paint, it's like, oh, thank you for bringing back the sky. What's happening is I'm removing, right up here, you can see I'm removing that, adjustment layer, that basically, that effect that's happening right there. So again, just kind of removing it. See what I'm doing there? Does that make sense? Something like that. I can even add more down here, kind of like remove that brightness and contrast from down there, okay? Because when I added too much brightness and contrast, it blew it out way too much. See? Does that make sense, everyone? Hopefully so. I could do some more things later on. Okay, turning that on. Again, now I have the vibrant sky, and I have this scene looking pretty good. Let's talk about removing people. Let's talk about specific photo edits. Okay, and this might be along the lines of how you remove sunlight from someone's face, because it's going to be about removing pixels. And follow me here, because right down here, I love these people, but they are not with our group. And I want it to look like nobody's there. That's what I'm going to do, is do local color, actually local photo edits. Good question. Eric probably knows the answers to this. What if your color was white or blue? If the color is blue, it's going to be a gray scale is what it's going to give you. So if you're on this layer mask and you're painting with blue, it's going to interpret it as a gray probably. So here's this bright blue that I have selected, okay? Right, see? Look what it does. You can see right over here, I selected blue. Since I'm on that layer mask, look, click. It actually just makes it a gray. So that's kind of what happens. Typically people paint with black or white. But let's get down to this. I'm going to get down to this layer, layer 0, right? Where these people are. And I'm like, oh, I love you. You're probably fantastic people, but I actually want to remove you from the photo. How do we do that? Sure, we could try to cut them out. We would try to select them. Maybe we'll select this area. Maybe this is what you'd do. You'd select this area and you'll do a copy and then you'll do a paste. And on this new layer, okay, here's my new layer. That's what is there. It's like this piece. This is the piece that I just copied and pasted, and maybe you'll move it over, right? That's not quite going to work because we still have those hard edges. But essentially what I did is I put this piece on a new layer. So that's what a sort of a cut, or excuse that, that's what a copy and paste will do. Okay, I'm going to go beyond this. You ready for this? I'm going to get rid of that. With that layer selected, I'm going to use some content aware tools. Shall I? A number of tools I can use. I can use the clone stamp tool, which has been around for a while. So the stamp tool will like stamp out parts from a selected area. And then we also, above that, we have the healing brush, spot healing brush, patch tool. So you might be able to get rid of that, that sunlight from someone's face using the healing brush or spot healing brush. But let's kind of, they all work the same way. So let me just kind of select the clone stamp tool right over here. I could click and it says, hey, you could not clone stamp this because you need to select an area first. What area do you want to clone? Well, I want to clone this area right over here. So we target this by holding down the Alt key. Click. And then we'll come over here and I can start to like paint, right? Or replace those pixels with the sampled area. So that's what the clone stamp tool does. I'm going to take it to the next level. That's right, Mensai. I'm going to use the spot removal. In fact, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to just use my selection tool right? This is my lasso, and kind of select these two people. There's so many things I can do. If I do spot removal, the spot healing brush will actually, it doesn't need you to sample an area in advance. It decides for you. But I'm going to go beyond that. There's so much we can do. I got to calm down. Maybe I want to use the patch tool, right? Patch tool is just going to give me the ability to select it, right? I'm going to roughly select these two people. And then watch, I'm going to move them over. And then I'm going to say, hey, patch that area with the newly selected area. Boom. And that's done. Let's do one more. And maybe I'll actually do a couple more. I'll do another example because this is probably what most people want to do. I'm going to do a fill, an edit, and then a fill. And again, it's the same technology as in here. Content aware. Hey, just be aware of the photo and fill in that area with the content around it. Click OK, and then it fills it in. Cool? Easy peasy. Let's go to some other. Let's go to this. I'll even just open up this file. It's kind of absurd, but this is typically, and again, since somebody said removing, yeah, so good call. So Mansai, healing brush sounds better because I think right in here, this is where you'd want to use the healing brush, right? And that's what we can do. We can use the spot healing brush tool because this guy has had better days. We've all been there, right? And typically when it comes to editing photos, you could remove anything that would be gone in 2 weeks, right? So we're not removing any sort of like mole or anything, but right up here, again, he's had better days and he has the senior photos coming up. So I'm using the spot healing brush right over here, spot healing brush tool. And all I need to do is click, boom, boom. Don't you wish you had this for real life? You just wake up in the morning and like, oh, let's fix that, let's fix that, let's fix that, right? And we're fixing all of those areas. That work for you? Yeah, content aware is like your new best friend. He likes it. He likes it so much, I want to try to make him smile. And this is maybe for next time. If you're interested, we can kind of dive into some more advanced features like liquefy. Because he likes it so much, I want to make sure he gets a smile out of it. So I'm actually giving him a little bit of a smile. Right? And this is basically the liquefy feature in Photoshop. I know for me, guys, honestly, I have one eye that's bigger than the other. So that's when I'd probably want to control this and just like make one eye a little larger. But I gave him a little bit more of a smile using the liquefy tool. And you know what? It's aware of the person's face. So it's a face aware liquefy. Made him look a little bit happier. I say if you have blemishes like that, one thing you shouldn't do is just point to them. Why are you pointing to them? That's your problem. Just don't have your hands all over your face, especially with those nails. Let's clean those up. That's for another day. Yeah, Eric, you're right. So the liquefy is like way too much fun. Another big problem is this earring. I don't know what's happening, buddy. I respect your individuality, but I guess that's happening. So again, those individual touch-ups is what you're going to want to do, and that's what I just did using these tools right over here, okay? We use the rubber stamp tool and spot healing brush. All these do exactly what you think they're going to do. If you had red eyes, we can remove those red eyes with the red eye tool. So you get the idea. Cool. All right, so let's move on. I wonder if we could even do this. So let's talk about like, and let me go back to my agenda. So we've understood the Photoshop Workspace, how to pull up panels, cropping a photo, making global and local color adjustments. That's one thing we can do right now is make some local color adjustments. So a specific area. We've done some touch-ups And I want to talk about sort of cutting out a background, like cutting him out of this background and putting him in a different scenario, like a different space, right? I think that gets to be pretty important. That gets to, you know, sort of like along lines of compositing photos together. But let's take a look at some of those sort of local color adjustments for this photo, right? And all I've gone through is just some of these touch-up tools. If we go down here, these tools have been in Photoshop for like ages. The dodge and burn tool, the sponge tool, right? Some of these you want to use, blur and sharpen. I might consider a multiple of these. So like I might want to dodge. So basically make an area lighter. So I can select the dodge tool and then go right over here and make an area brighter. I'm going to look anytime I have a tool selected. Anytime I have the tool selected, I will see the properties for it or the options for it at the top. So the range is really just going to get the midtones. And I'm thinking that's okay because I want to brighten up some midtones, okay? I'm thinking brighten up maybe part of his eyes if I want to, right? But I'm just kind of showing you what happens, brightening up his eyes a little bit. Those beautiful, gorgeous brown eyes, making them a little brighter, okay? If I change this from midtones to highlights, it's really going to get that highlight in the eye and make it much more bold. And I'm being a little bit more, I'm exaggerating that just so you can see the difference. But now look at his eyes pop. We really want to make his eyes pops, and I see people do this when it comes to sort of like editing images. They will sharpen, they'll use the sharpen tool and sharpen those areas right in here. So again, I can use the sharpen tool. I'm just adjusting my brush size is what I'm doing. So I'm going to make it a little larger. And then they'll start to sort of sharpen up those eyes using the sharpen tool. Make them pop, right? Some more things. Let's use the dodge tool on his teeth. Make them a little brighter. We can make them brighter, but we don't want to make them yellow. See, as they start to get a little yellow, it's like, oh, that's not good. Help this guy. So in that case, we can go to the sponge tool. We're going to sponge up some colors. And what are we going to do with those colors? We're going to desaturate those colors. So with desaturation set, I can go in and just kind of take out that yellow that was brought on a second ago and adjust accordingly. All right. Oh yeah, thank you so much, Pete. Yeah, so I kind of overlooked that. I know this is a beginning session. You just do a long click and that will fly out these tools. Pete, correct me if I'm wrong. Unlike, say, Illustrator, there's no way to pull out this panel, is there, in Photoshop? In Illustrator, you actually have a little bar where you can grab. But anyways, you can always customize that bar. All right. Fancy stuff. I like it. You guys are good. Cool. All right, so you're working on that. I've done local color adjustments by using these tools. Okay, everything looks pretty good. The problem with using some of these tools, this is totally fine because chances are you can go destructive because you know you don't want to bring back those blemishes. But what you can always do is you could use, you know this, Eric and Pete, you can also use right up here. It is called Camera Raw filter. So if there's anything in Photoshop which is like just a make it better filter, that's what Camera Raw is. Okay, so maybe that's what I'd want to do. Let's do this. Let's actually just reset this. I'm gonna revert this. You ready? Because everything I just did, I could do non-destructively. All I need to do is Camera Raw filter. I'm gonna do this fast. Camera Raw filter under filters. I want to make it better button because I just want him to look brighter and better and greater and, you know, improve his smile and his love life and everything, you know, just like restore past relationships. I don't know. But check this out. If you go to Camera Raw filter because you don't know what to select, you're like, do I do hue, saturation, vibrance, contrast, levels, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I'll launch this Camera Raw and right in here off to the side, anytime I see an auto button, that's typically where I'll start. So Camera Raw, click auto, boop. Oh, automatically adjusted the exposure, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, like everything, the vibrance, it did it all. And I have everything in one panel, and I can adjust accordingly, increasing the vibrance or the clarity. Watch, I'm going to increase the clarity, make him look like an old man, essentially, is what's happening, right? Same thing, I could even use these tools right up at the top if I wanted to remove any spots. I have a spot removal tool right in here too, in Camera Raw. It actually selects the area that I can then adjust. So again, Camera Raw, as you dive more into it, is an excellent effect that you're going to want to use when it comes to editing photos, right? So this is more what the photographers will use, and this is probably the least used. It should be used a lot more is all I'm saying, right? I did that. The camera raw settings come directly from, they don't come from Lightroom, but Lightroom does have camera raw. I got to think about that. It doesn't come from Lightroom. It actually comes from the camera raw settings, and I think Lightroom got them, has camera raw settings built into it as well. So yeah. Oh yeah, Chad. Chad knows what's up. Okay, Chad, what did I not do here that I probably should have? Because I said, oh, here's your magic button in, camera raw filter. But what should I have probably done to protect the pixels of this photo? Because I still worked destructively. Like, what should I use to make it non-destructive? I know you know the answer. I'm going to pretend like I see it. So I'm going to undo this. So again, I worked destructively there. Okay, I don't want to work destructively. You ready for this? Manasi or anyone who is new to Photoshop, this is huge. If you could capture, if you could learn two things in Photoshop, if I could really instill these in you, it's layer masks, because it's going to protect pixels, because you're just painting with black, removes it, even though those pixels are still there, and smart objects. So those are the two that really makes you a pro. Because check this out. I'm going to turn this into a smart object by right and click. Convert to smart object. Boom, Chad got it. So I'd want to create a smart object out of the layer, which is probably the most common thing to do. Because what this does is this makes it like a Photoshop file within a Photoshop file. So I'll select convert to smart object. Wait for it. And you can see right here, I have this little icon. See right here? It says, hey, I'm a smart object. I'm protected pixels, right? And I can double click it. And that will open up that separate file. So this is a separate file technically. So it's a PSD inside of a PSD. So from there, with it protected, I can go to filter camera raw or do whatever I want to it. And it's going to add it as a layer. So auto, fix these areas. Right? You get the idea. Clicking OK. Going back. What do we have? Boom. Smart filter. Your new best friend. Yes. So cool. Cool. Pete, you know what's up. We could do anytime so duplicating a layer. Yeah, you can duplicate a layer. I always duplicate layers just because that's kind of like me keeping my backup. But here it preserves all of that. So I could turn this off. Boop. Before, after. Before, after. I want to go back into Camera Raw. Double click. And make, add some more clarity to it. And fix, heaven forbid. Oh, get it together, Paul. Jeez, look at this. Fix this. Fix that. Sample from over here. Where's this sampling from? Sure, that's okay. All right, you get the idea. All right, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna move on from this. I want to talk about selections. So that looks good. You know about these. This is super fantastic. Smart objects are your new best friend. You definitely want to use them. I'm gonna dive into maybe a case where you do want to duplicate layers. How about that? So I'm gonna open up something and I'm gonna talk about selections. We can do a magic selection. Let's do some magic. And geez, I already like closed down this file, but let's just make it new. Paste this guy in. Maybe it's not there. When it comes to selections, there's cases where you need to extract things, and maybe I'll open up a couple. We could literally talk for an hour about selections. You know, selecting the sky and putting some text back there. What if I want to put, you know, Yosemite back here, right? And I want this text. I just typed it in with the text tool, just like I did with my other tools. I have this option bar at the top. I also have this properties panel, but basically I want to change the color to white, clicking OK. And let's change the font to something else, kind of thick and awesome. In fact, ooh, that's a good font, Acumen. Yeah, let's do this, because I want something kind of like that. Here's my text. And I want this text behind the mountains, right? So I'm going to be able to select that area. So this is what I do. You ready for this? I'm going to duplicate this layer just by dragging this down to the page. And it will duplicate it. Boop. There's two layers. So one's going to be the foreground, one's going to be the background. I'm going to use my magic wand, right? In fact, this is what I would do. I would actually, rather than using the magic wand tool, I would use quick selection tool. So using quick selection is going to be quick. It might not be accurate, but look, I can just kind of click and drag and select that area. Another thing you could do is go to select, and you can select the color range. So from here, I can just click right in here, select that color range, hold down, click into that some more, but basically I'm selecting those blues. Okay, so you could select based on the color range. For this case, I think I'm just going to go back to the quick selection tool, clicking and dragging. It selects that area right in here. Now what do? I want to click right down here, this add a layer mask. Are you ready for this? I actually want to hold down the Alt key, but I basically removed that sky by adding that layer mask. Since I had a selection done in advance, so when I added that layer mask, it removed from that selection. Right? And now I can turn on that background, and now I have these two layers. Okay? Two different layers going on. Now what I can do is I can take my text, move it behind that first layer, and now I have that text exactly where I want it. And I can play with the color modes. So let's change this to overlay. And now it just kind of has a cool look about it. And I want to change this font to bold. And adjust the kerning to -25, like that. Sweet. Is that cool? Hopefully you like that. Making selections. Let's get our bear. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. We've done this selection. Let's dive into this bear. This bear would be pretty tough. Even if I'm using the quick selection tool, I could try to use it. Or what I could use is select right down here. Oops. Focus area. So I've done color range. I'm saying, hey, just select the area that's in focus, because that's what you're going to want to do 9 times out of, well, part of the time when you're trying to extract a background. But I'm going to select the focus area. And then I don't touch anything. You see my hands right here. It extracted and focused, just created this focus area right there. Boom. Thank you. I can adjust further if I'm not crazy about what it does. And now not only that, from this dialog, are you seeing this, Pete? I don't know if you know about this, or Chad, but now I can make that new layer with a layer mask, because that's what I did. That's what I did a second ago, is I duplicated that layer of those mountains, and then I made a layer mask, and here it does it for me. Because it says, hey, you know what? I think I know what you want to do. How did you know? Clicking OK. There it is, new layer with a layer mask. Turn that on, and now I can have like this logo, for instance. And maybe this logo is kind of in between, something like that. I would even get more fancy pants on you by duplicating that logo layer and removing that part and this part. You ready for this? That's kind of neat. I don't. No, that's not what I want. I want to invert that. There we go. Isn't that awesome? Let's fix this. I'm just going to paint with black, right? Again, paint with black. I'm going to remove. Oops. Brush is a little large. You know, paint right there. Oh, love it. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Thank you, Matthew. So what did I do? Just kind of dissect this. This is this first layer. If I paint with black, again, here's my brush. Right up here at a certain size. I can paint with black to remove. I can paint with white to bring it back for that layer, because I'm painting on that layer. This is my selection, right? So this is the selection layer. I did the focus area select. So it's behind that. And then underneath that is this layer right here. And then we have this one. So that's the idea. From there, I would probably just kind of take this full circle. I'd want to add some of those, like a color lookup. Maybe I'll get something more interesting if I do soft warming look, or one of these different teal to orange. Nope. I don't know. I'm just playing around now. Trying to see if I can come up with like a better look for this. But you get the idea. Too much contrast. That's pretty good. Let's just go with drop blues. All right, cool. So many other things I want to show you, but I am only supposed to go for an hour. And I want to show you just like, again, if we open up some of these, Puppet Warp, something I'll have to talk about later. But we can open up, like, one example I was going to go with is this like butterflies example that I mentioned at the very top of the hour. Because based on what we know now, we can take a look at this and take a look at, you know, what a typical designer's file would look like. You know, this is going to be messy. Here I have this color lookup table using film stock. That's what's happening there. We can see I have this folder of this woman, and then this background. So we can see the background there. That looks pretty awesome. And then we have this woman layer that has all these different butterflies as well. So anyways, I just kind of wanted to pick apart an actual file so you can see. Can Photoshop extract the bear as a 3D object, or is 3D restricted to text and basic shapes? So it's not going to extract it as a 3D object. So you can do 3D, even in this case. If I decided to have text that said fly, yeah, it's not quite going to work. FLY. Just to take things to the next level, here's my text. And 3D, we can, actually I'd probably open up the 3D menu is what I'd want to do. 3D menu, and from this 3D menu, I do a 3D extrusion, but it's only going to do text. And if you do a photo, like even the bear, it's just going to extract that one square is all it's going to do. So, but again, 3D extrusion, why not? Create. And now we have 3D text there that I can rotate. But that's content for another day. Let's actually change this. Oh, that's my problem. I actually am rotating the plane, but yeah, I have to make sure I have that object selected. I can actually rotate sort of the object like I'm doing here and put that behind her. You get the idea. All right, everyone, kind of winding down now. I do want to make sure I'm answering any questions you might have about Photoshop. Again, this is just a beginner view, and we're already dabbling in 3D, so I do apologize for that. I think that's a little too advanced for us, but you get the idea. All right. Will the recording of the session be sent to attendees afterward? I don't know. I hope so. I can talk to Jody about that. But this same link, this is being recorded now, so you could watch this tomorrow or next week or whatever. So just save this URL. That's all you need to do. Just save, just drag it into your bookmark bar. And thank you, Mensai. Yeah, it's going to be hard to remember all at once. But hopefully you got kind of like the fundamentals to hopefully get you excited. And at least maybe, I guess, everybody knows what they don't know. I don't know. I was speaking to kind of different people here. And again, the big things are, as you dive into Photoshop, is using, let's go back to our photos, using layer masks, I think, adding adjustment layers for overall global adjustments, and smart objects. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Kind of get these down to what we created today, at least those two. And I also want to post a link to get your feedback as well. So give me 1 second. Or Jody, I don't know if maybe you can do that. Jody, I don't know if you can paste the link. But essentially, that's what I'm going to do right now. Ignore my email, everybody. We'll switch back over to what we were just talking about and everything you've learned and the goals for the day. Because I'm just going to grab this link. And that last bullet point essentially says what we covered. We'd love to get your feedback right here. Feedback. There you go. There's the URL. You should have it. Feel free to fill that out. That's the survey link. So Eric, yeah, Pete, Eric, Thesha, Ash, John, Trisha, Jack, Snehal, Rick, like, fill out that survey, because we want to do things that you want. We want to make this empowering for you. So that's the big key. So essentially, fill out that survey, and that just kind of gives us some guidance on where we should go next. So that's the goal. But I want to be respectful of your time. I was only going to go for an hour, and that should be it. You can follow me on Twitter, all that stuff, at PTRANI, or PTRANI at adobe.com is where you can reach me internally. Be happy to answer your questions or point you in the right direction if you have further questions. And thank you, Anusha. That means a lot to me as well. So thank you, everybody, for watching. I want to be respectful of your time. Let us know if we can help you in any way, and fill out that survey. And yeah, let's go ahead and make the world a more beautiful, loving place with the power of Photoshop and your sparkling personality. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. You can also hop over to behance.net/live, because they're live streaming there right now. So you can kind of check out what they're doing in terms of illustration.